Writing is a great art. Of course, it's also a science. Effective writing is very important to attract audience. Well, how do we make your writing effective? Well, writing in journalistic terms can include news writing, writing a feature, writing an article, writing an editorial, writing a comment, a news analysis. So it can be a host of things. Of course, you can write an essay if it is not a journalistic situation. Well, you may have to encounter several writing situations, but there are certain common principles of effective writing. So these principles can be broadly categorized into two. A, the language component. B, the content component. In this video, I would be discussing the content component of that. What makes writing effective? Let's discuss certain basic principles of writing effective content. What do you mean by effective content? Effective content should have certain basic qualities that make reading interesting, that can attract the readers. So the readers should be in a position to easily comprehend what you are actually writing. So if the writer is confused, the reader is also confused, and obviously it doesn't become a good piece of writing. Well, of course, when we talk about effective writing, there are two components of effective writing. One, the language component. Secondly, the content component. Well, of course, the language includes grammar, rewriting the copy, giving clarity in what you are writing, improving your vocabulary, etc. Well, I'm not getting into those aspects of effective writing. In today's video, I shall be broadly discussing certain techniques to make your writing more effective. Of course, when you are writing a longer piece, well, these principles attain greater importance. Assuming that you are writing an essay for some competitive examination, or it can even be a normal writing on your social media account. You may write something for your Facebook, so you may write a blog for yourself. So any piece of writing has certain basic components. Well, of course, even these principles are greatly valid for effective speaking also. But effective speaking has certain additional characteristics. Like the language part is in addition to the content part in a written story. In a speech context, not just the language, the manners, the behavioral aspects, how do you deliver the content, how do we articulate your content in a oral form, also really matter. So, but the content part of that, what makes content effective, is reasonably valid for even not just a written story, but even a speech too. So today we will be talking about certain components of effective writing. So before you write anything, formulate a skeleton of what you want to write. So you may write the skeleton on a piece of paper, or you may visualize the skeleton in your mind itself. Of course, once you become an experienced writer, you may not even formulate a skeleton before you write something. Obviously, it automatically gets framed in your mind. You may not make a special effort for that. But if you are a beginner in writing activity, it's always better to think of a skeleton. What do you mean by skeleton? Skeleton is nothing but a list of subheadings which you have. What makes this skeleton necessary? It will help in the logical progression of the content. It will help to arrange content in a particular manner so that the reader will find it easy to read, easy to understand. And it also prevents overlapping of content, duplication of content, repetition of a content. Redundancy is a crime in writing. You should not repeat something unless it is in teaching context. In a teaching context, we normally repeat. Why do we repeat? We repeat so that some late learners will also catch the content. When I say something now, some of my students may immediately receive the content. Well, some of them may not. So repetition reinforces in a teaching context. But in writing, repetition is absolutely unacceptable. So there should not be redundancy either in language or in content. So repetition is a bad form of communication, whether written or oral. So it's a waste of time, waste of space. Because in a journalistic writing especially, space is very, very important. When I was writing an editorial for my newspaper, I was compelled to write my editorial in plus or in around 500 words. Well, of course, plus or minus 10 words. But I should communicate my content in 500 words. So therefore, if I repeat 20 words or 30 words, actually I will be losing an opportunity to tell something more. That same 30 words can be used to tell something more. So repetition has to be avoided. Preparing a skeleton before writing will help you to prevent repetition, prevent overlapping, prevent unnecessary mixing up and messing up the content. Many do this mistake. They tell something in the first paragraph and tell something else in the second paragraph, fine. But third paragraph again they go back to the something which they have already written in the first paragraph. So this kind of confused writing will make something very, very difficult to understand. So therefore, preparing a skeleton is very, very important for effective writing, especially writing effective content. I'll illustrate this with an example. I was writing 2 days back on Prashant Bhushan episode. I had to write an article, or in journalistic parlance we call it a story. I was writing a story on Prashant Bhushan episode. Well, all of you are aware, the Supreme Court found him guilty of contempt of court, and a punishment has to be delivered. Well, there is a huge debate in Indian media for and against it. So there is I have to write something on that. So what did I do? Well, after writing so many articles, I will not write a skeleton before I write. Perhaps it may not be required for me. It may not be necessary for me. I would rather frame the skeleton in my mind, and sometimes I don't even do that. Automatically the skeleton gets structured in the mind. So the mind will develop that software to process the content and organize that content in a proper skeleton. So I will tell you one example. I will explain this example more. So how did I write? Well, I first wrote what is Supreme Court, what is the contempt of court, Article 129 of the Supreme Court, Article 129 of the Constitution of India, Article 215 of the Constitution of India. So in the first part, I explained what are the constitutional provisions governing contempt of court? So this is the first point I explained. Then second point I explained what constitutes contempt of court. So in the first part I have only dealt with the constitutional provisions that empower courts to initiate contempt of court proceedings. In the second part I have talked about what constitutes contempt of court. Well, I have quoted several judgments. For example, weakening the authority of the courts, A. B. Misrepresenting the court orders, C. Completely or wrongly interpreting something court orders, D. Scandalizing the courts, so etc. etc. I have explained to them what constitutes contempt of court. For that I have quoted several Supreme Court judgments like the EMS Namboodiripad versus T.N. Nambiar judgment of 1970, Narmada Bachao Andolan judgment of 1999, etc. Well, then the third part. What is the criticism on this contempt of court provisions? Should Supreme Court and High Court have this power to punish someone for contempt of court? When I explained the debate around the contempt of court, the conflict between Article 129 of the Constitution that empowers Supreme Court, Article 215 of the Constitution that empowers High Courts to initiate contempt of court proceedings, and Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution of India that provides every citizen with the fundamental right to freedom of expression. So how these two constitutional provisions, seemingly conflicting and competing, interplay to create a contempt of court jurisprudence in India. I was quoting Daftari case, I was quoting 1971 judgment of the Supreme Court. So I was quoting a couple of other judgments to explain to the reader how the contempt of court does not violate the fundamental right but comes under the Article 19(2) of the Constitution. So this is the third part. Look at how it is arranged. This is called the skeleton. What is contempt of court? 1. 2. What constitutes contempt of court? 3. Contempt of court versus freedom of expression. 4th, what is the judicial pronouncement? What are the judicial pronouncements? What is the opinion expressed by the legendary scholars, leading jurists, on how do we use this power to punish someone under contempt of court? Yes, there is power, but with what responsibility this power has to be exercised. In this part I was talking about Lord Denning, the due process of law. I was talking about Justice Gajendra Gadkar's observation, etc. So that 4th one, limits to the power. Then the 5th one is, what is Prashant Bhushan case all about? Well, this can be the first one also to provide a context for the article. I can start with the first paragraph. What exactly is the controversy? What did Prashant Bhushan say in his 2 tweets? What did Supreme Court opine on this? So that will be the first course. So obviously the 5th one becomes the first one. Second one becomes what is contempt of court. Third one becomes what constitutes contempt of court. 4th one, contempt of court versus freedom of expression. And the 5th one is limits for exercising this power. Then the 6th one is the argument for and against, or argument whether Prashant Bhushan tweets constitute a contempt of court. What did Prashant Bhushan exactly say? So Prashant Bhushan was found guilty for 2 tweets. So the 6th one will be on the first tweet, 7th will be on the second tweet, and 8th can be the conclusion. So this is called the skeleton. So this, if you prepare the skeleton, you can organize your content in an effective manner. So ఇక పడిపోయినట్టయింది చూడు ఒకసారి జారింది ఏం కదా ఓకేనా నెక్స్ట్ ఇక్కడ అవుతుంది కదా Well, let me tell you the second element of effective writing. The second element of effective writing refers to logical progression. In the first element of effective writing, I told you prepare a skeleton and explain to you how skeleton helps to write something with a logical progression. What do you mean by logical progression? Logical progression simply means the information will flow logically. Look at the first example I gave you. How did that information flow? It started with Prashant Bhushan context, Prashant Bhushan tweets and Supreme Court judgment, then went on explaining what is contempt of court, Article 2, 129 and 215, then explain to you what constitutes contempt of court, then discuss does it not conflict with Article 19(1)(a). So then the limits to exercise of such a power. So this is called the logical progression. Well, I will give you another example also. So the logical progression is required for any particular topic. Even if you do not prepare a skeleton, the logical progression will be adversely affected. Sometimes not just for logical progression. Skeleton is required so that you cover all the points, so that you will not mix the points. So the skeleton for logical progression, and second is skeleton for comprehensiveness. To provide a comprehensiveness to your writing, skeleton is required. For example, I am writing about I'll give you an example. I have to write on implications of new education policy for higher education in India. With this example, I will show you how preparation of skeleton is required to provide comprehensiveness to what you are writing. Of course, comprehensively you have to write within the limitation. Comprehensiveness doesn't mean you write 5,000 word article. Well, obviously any journalistic writing, or even for that matter any form of writing, has a limitation, has a word limit. So within the word limit, how do you comprehensively write? So the best way to write comprehensively is not to miss at least the salient points in it, salient features of that. So when I'm writing about new education policy, well, I will have to first list out what are the major recommendations of NEP 2020 in regard to higher education in India. One, it talks about the 4-year degree course. 2, multidisciplinary universities and higher education clusters. 3, integrating humanities and social sciences with science, technology, engineering, mathematics courses. 4, doing away with UGC, AICT and creating a single all-powerful agency called Higher Education Commission of India. 5, giving up doing away with the MPhil program. 6, distinction between research universities, teaching universities. 7, maximum autonomy, giving autonomy to the colleges. 8, foreign universities providing entry to the foreign universities. Ninth, continuous and comprehensive evaluation. 10th, autonomy for the teacher and the institution in terms of curriculum, pedagogy and evaluation. So, like this, you have to list out what are the major or salient features of the topic on which you are planning to write. Well, you have to list them in order of priority, because if you write an important point and by the time you want to write the important point, you will exhaust the word limit also. So you have to write the salient points in descending order of priority without losing the logical progression. So you need a logical progression here. So as many points as possible you will try to cover. Assuming, for example, if I write about continuous and comprehensive evaluation first, and if I list 4A degree course as the last point, and we do not have time and the word limit is exhausted, if I give up or if I don't comment on the 4A degree course, I will be doing injustice to the story. So therefore, you have to list out the salient points of the topic on which you want to write and list them in a descending order of priority without losing the logical progression. So this is the second one. So first one is logical progression, skeleton for logical progression. 2, skeleton for comprehensiveness. Then the third aspect is cause and effect analysis. If you really want to write something effectively, identify the causes and effects. That's an easy way to write effectively. I'll give you an example. I was writing on why dollar is losing its sheen. Why dollar is losing its value. Well, which aspect of this effective writing becomes important depends upon the topic I am choosing. For example, I am choosing why dollar is losing its value, then the cause and effect approach plays an important role. For a topic on new education policy, perhaps the cause and effect aspect may not be of great importance. Instead, you have an approach wherein you explain something and give your analysis. So the third aspect is, well, why dollar is losing its value? A policy of monetary easing, that's one factor. Second factor is global economic climate is improving, that's the second point. Third point is American sanctions are forcing nations to move towards assets which are not denominated in dollars, like China, Russia, etc. Fourth, US starting currency swap facility, so therefore the supply of dollars have increased. So like that, I list out all the causes that led to the fall in the value of dollar. Well, again, all of them become a skeleton also. All of them become a skeleton which helps me to write logically and comprehensively. So, but in this third aspect, without unnecessarily writing something, I straight away give a pointed analysis of causes and effects. That's the third approach to effective writing. Then the fourth approach to effective writing is a comparison. When you compare something with the other, a contrast makes an interesting reading. For example, I was writing on the pandemic, how India fared on the pandemic curve, how far India succeeded in mitigating the pandemic. Well, I may explain many things, but if I give a comparison of India with African countries, with Asian countries, the writing makes effective. For example, if I write, India was not so successful in controlling the pandemic, I may explain the figures. India ranks third in the total number of cases. India ranks third in total number of deaths. India has 35 lakh, over 35 lakh cases, over 63,000 deaths. Well, India still reporting around 79,000 cases per day. I may explain all these points. I may give all these statistics to explain the situation and to make you understand the gravity of the problem. But assuming that I compare this with other nations, then it makes an interesting reading. For example, the case per million in India are 2,450. Case per million in Asia is 1450. Case per million in Africa is 911. Death per million in India is 45, whereas it is 30 in Asia, 21 in Africa. So when I compared Indian experience with that of Asia and Africa, it makes an interesting content. It becomes more effective. So I communicate my point that India did not fare well in tackling the pandemic in a more effective way. So comparing and contrast will always make an interesting reading. Then the fifth one is interpretation. Well, by merely presenting facts, you cannot attract the reader. Just reeling out the facts one after the other doesn't make up for an interesting reading. Well, obviously, people want in-depth understanding of a subject. So, interpretation enriches your writing. If you want to write a story, giving interpretation in it, analysis in it, will enrich the story. I'll give you an example. President Donald Trump talked about Ivanka Trump today, that Ivanka Trump will become a good president of America. Well, this is a fact. Everybody knows. President Donald Trump today said that Ivanka Trump will become a good president. He was strongly attacking Kamala Harris, the vice presidential nominee of Democrats. You write this. This is only a fact. But if you interpret this fact, why did Trump refer to Ivanka while he was attacking Kamala Harris? One, Trump is really worried once Kamala Harris entered the fray as the vice presidential nominee, because Kamala Harris has ignited the Democratic campaign with her mixed identity, Indian American and Afro-American identity, being a woman candidate, being a civil rights activist. And not only that, she balances the age. She is 55 years and Joe Biden is 78 years. So Kamala Harris' entry has certainly ignited the Democratic campaign. So Donald Trump was visibly worried about this. So he wants to attack Kamala Harris. But when he attacks Kamala Harris, people will remember Trump's anti-woman bias. Trump talked nonsense about women all these years. So he especially about non-white women. Even now Kamala Harris, he said she's not beautiful. So Trump will never change. So to hide his anti-woman bias, he was referring to Ivanka Trump. So by telling that he is not against a woman becoming occupying White House, so he referred to Ivanka Trump to argue that he is also in favor of women. Second point is, well, he wants to counter Kamala Harris because he is worried that Kamala Harris will be a strong presidential nominee for 2024 elections. He wants and he hopes to field Ivanka Trump in the 2024 presidential race. If he wins now, it will be easy for him. If he loses now, it may be difficult, but Ivanka will obviously be his choice. So if he loses these elections, Kamala Harris will be a stronger candidate. So he was actually trying to campaign for his daughter right from now itself. So that is the second reason he attacked Kamala Harris. So this is called interpretation. In journalism we say facts are sacred, interpretation is free. Whether someone may agree with me and may not agree with my interpretation. There is no rule that everybody has to agree with my interpretation. There is no rule that everybody has to agree with my analysis. But I have a right to interpret. I have a right to take a position in my analysis. So this is called analysis and interpretation. When you interpret a fact, it becomes an interesting reading. So I have explained 5 aspects of effective writing today. 5 aspects of writing effective content. 1, you need a logical progression, which can be facilitated by forming a skeleton of what you want to write. 2, prepare a skeleton for comprehensiveness so that you will not miss any important point. 3rd, comparison will make something interesting. Well, the 4th one is cause and effect analysis or factorial analysis. You will delineate the factors behind it. And the 5th one is obviously interpretation. So writing effective content is not just an art, it's not just a skill, there is a science behind it. So the science of effective writing requires all these elements and many more, and we will discuss many more in my next video.